Welcome in. I am Paige Kuhn, and this is your BR ranking show presented by UKG. And I am joined by my No Punts Allowed podcast co-host and national college football writer for Bleacher Report, Adam Kramer. Kramer, this week we thought was going to be a quiet week, and it certainly wasn't.
No, where are the Penn State fans at, right? Like how are we
Yeah,
feeling
get in
this
the
morning?
chat.
Where are the Texas fans at? This was carnage. This was carnage. You think about 1 and 2 when the first show that we did, right?
Yes.
Texas and Penn State, popular picks to win the national championship. Throw Clemson in there too, because that was our pick. We're seeing now massive shakeups almost weekly. But when you look at the total investment page, and you and I were talking about this before we got on, a $3 million defensive coordinator,
Yeah.
all that Penn State did to build this roster for now, to lose like that to a team that had not won, that got blown out by a team like New Mexico, right?
It barely
Just
had its original coaching staff.
hard to put into words just how big of a loss that was for Penn State.
Yes, and we obviously will give credit to UCLA because that was an incredible performance from Nico Iamaleava, who
Amazing.
we has really taken a lot of not so great stuff in the media over the last couple of weeks from Tennessee fans. They had a bye, so hopefully they were able to watch that game. But it is one of those things where we thought it was going to be a quiet week, and there were teams also in conferences, I think, where we're starting to see conferences take shape, excuse me. And I think one of the bigger aspects of this is the college football playoff to me feels a bit wide open. Like you're a team, if you're on the fringe and you're, especially in the Big Ten and the SEC, we just talked about the two teams that were preseason, 1 and 2. This to me feels like, hey, there's a lot of room for those fringe teams to get into that 12-team playoff.
It is very open. A team like Virginia, these teams that we have not been talking about. How about the group of five race, right? When you look at the bottom
Yeah.
half of the AP poll,
Yeah,
and
look at
that's
the
starting
people right
to,
now.
it's starting to intensify. So maybe not a ton of change at the very top, but outside of that, this is one of those weeks. It was a good week to have a bye, right? It was a good week to sit on the sideline and watch the chaos unfold in front of you.
I think it's really funny that Miami moved up a spot this week, by the way.
Sure, why not?
Sure, give it to
Yeah,
them. They beat Florida State, okay. But it's funny to me that we're still not putting them number one. Then, like, if you're gonna put them above Oregon, like I feel like on the flip side, you could argue that they deserve to be over Ohio State. And if I'm being perfectly honest, if this was the college football playoff rankings, I would think Miami would be the number one team.
well, and it's a good point because look at Ohio State. What does that win over Texas mean, right? Like
Yes,
right now, not a whole lot.
again.
What does Oregon's win over at Penn State mean? So we were talking about these being the premier wins like of any resume. And now we have to obviously recalibrate that. So a team like Miami with Notre Dame and a resume that's looking better and better, you're absolutely right. I think they have a chance at that number one spot here soon.
A team that I feel like maybe we're not talking enough about, and I said this before, maybe fringe teams, and I feel like that's a bad thing to say when you're the fifth team ranked in the country. But Texas A&M quietly, still very much. I mean, they played close games. They played in a close game against Auburn. This last week was not really a close game, but Texas A&M, I feel like, is a team that really does have a chance to make the college football playoff. And I know you are a big fan of their quarterback.
I'm a big fan of the quarterback, and also I'm just a fan stylistically of how they can win, right? We've seen them win games while giving up 40 points. We saw yesterday them win kind of ugly, slow start against Mississippi State, a much better Mississippi State team. But Reed gives you a chance, obviously, but defensively is where that team I think is starting to really impress. So you have the quarterback, you have the skill position players. They obviously invested heavy at wide receiver in the portal. They're just very complete, right? And you're right. Looking there at number five, I mean, they're sitting pretty. Obviously, tough games coming up, including one this week against now a surging Florida team that we're going to have to talk about.
Surging.
But it's a brutal schedule. But I love the way they're coached. I love the way they play.
Okay, I do just want to note for everybody because I think this was a very big topic of conversation after this week of games that I saw one person on X say if Penn State or Texas are ranked in the AP top 25, you really should get those voters out. And those two teams have dropped out. If you're either of those teams, what is your outlook sort of for the rest of your season and how do you kind of regroup? Because technically they still could get in, but I think it's going to be a lot harder.
Well, and it doesn't get any easier, right? So for
Yes.
me, like you have to start by truly emotionally regrouping. There was so much expectations that you just wonder what the state of this is. I mean, we'll talk about it in a bit. Texas got to go play Oklahoma now, granted without their starting QB. But what happens then? So truly, I'll do cliche coach speak. Why not? Like it is a 1 week at a time situation. But the fact that we're talking about those two teams in take it week by week is a testament to just how underwhelming they have been. And really the other thing, Paige, too, let's be honest, the centerpiece of their struggles is quarterback, right? Like Drew Aller
Yes.
has not developed. And Arch, unfortunately, continues to really, really struggle in a way that, we thought it would be a slow go, you and I both. I don't think anybody expected to be like this.
Yeah, in terms of Penn State, I will also say I think play calling a big part of the problem.
Terrible.
But Kramer, I want to talk about a team that I know you are very excited to just see getting the credit because you've been begging for the last couple of weeks. When are we going to take this team seriously? And that is BYU. Kramer, thoughts on this team in the Big 12?
All they do is win, Paige. All they do is win, right? Like this is a team last year that lost what, 2 games by like less than 10 points combined. Uh,
Yeah.
do we feel like they're still a little bit disrespected? And let me put it in a different way. If the logo on the helmet was different and maybe a more, tried and true blue blood, if you will, how
Yeah.
much higher would they be ranked, right?
Yeah.
Undeniably, I think they're still getting a little disrespect here.
I mean, I said last week I thought it was okay where they were because of the fact that they did play a Colorado team pretty close, which I guess it
Yes.
was at Colorado, so you could give them credit. But I will say they play Arizona and then Utah, and then Utah. So there's a stretch for them that is Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU, and Cincinnati, and
Cincinnati.
then UCF. So that chunk of their schedule is not going to be easy. I think for any Big 12 team that is still in it, there's still a few games that they have to worry about. Not just maybe one big game, like maybe in the Big 10 per se, that you have to worry about. I think the Big 12, it's like week by week, you really do have challenges.
Cincinnati is another team, by the way. I'm a little surprised we're not seeing here, given just how overwhelming that result was. A team that obviously, you talk about the first week against Nebraska, that's a game they could have had. God, they'd love to have that one back. But still, when it comes to the conference play now, it's another team that we have to factor in. That conference is Big 12. Like every year, it just turns over, right? Like it is wild to see just the general movement we see week to week when it comes to teams kind of playing their way into that discussion.
Another team in that conference that maybe was punished a little too early, in my opinion, is Arizona State. I think they, after that Mississippi State loss, they fell out. It was like, all right, nope, we obviously know Mississippi State a little bit better than we thought. But Arizona State, still some faith there that they could get this job done in the Big 12?
Yes, because you have a great coach, you have a quarterback. So much of our show so far has been play calling and just inconsistencies at the position. When you have Levitt, you have an elite wide receiver, you have a head coach who is one of the best pure offensive scripters in the country. You've got a shot. But I'm with you. For a team that was like the darling of college football last year, it feels like we're just forgotten about them. Part of that is because the conference has been wild. Texas Tech has had their moment. Utah looked very, good to start the season, obviously falling. They'll have a say in this, I guess, to your point. I think they're very much still in the mix.
Yes. Iowa State losing to Cincinnati this week, one of the biggest fallers in the AP poll this week. I do think this team still has hope, but I think that running into that Cincinnati team when they did, we kept saying all season, like Iowa State's really emotionally handled the season really well in terms of environments they've played in, road games, all of those things. This a little bit tough, but I will say probably still in the mix and deserving of staying in the top 25. I appreciate that we didn't drop them out sort of like we did with ASU.
No, the resume is still good, to your point. Concerning thing for me, Iowa State and watching that game, and probably concerning that it's going to be on tape. Cincinnati ran for like 260 plus yards. They averaged 8 yards a carry. They were just absolutely Iowa State blown up at the line of scrimmage. And when you talk about the schedule kind of heating up, that's not good. Chaotic game. I thought they showed some heart to come back, right? Like this is a team that attitude wise plays exactly what you want to see. But just in terms of the actual, optics of it, Paige, there were some things I saw that were hugely concerning. Still, I am glad they're ranked. We don't want to overreact for a team that showed a lot here through the first 6 weeks of the season.
If you're Oregon, are you a little peeved that you maybe moved down a spot during a bye week after a huge win, or are you like, no, understandable because Penn State just went and did what they did? Thanks, Penn State.
I'm sure Dan Lanning would have some choice words and will,
Right?
but also like who cares, right? They're in position A, and to look ahead a little bit, they've got a huge game coming up against Indiana. Such a bizarre the fact that Oregon Indiana is a conference game between two top 10 teams, just weird but fantastic. So this is what's going to happen. Like we see some bouncing around the top three spots. Teams will move up and down based on these results. I think if Oregon delivers a big win, they're a double-digit favorite, which is wild. Then they're absolutely going to probably move back to that number two spot.
I know I guess we'll go SEC, then I'll go back to the Big 12. Big 12 getting a lot of love.
Of course.
Alabama, how would you assess their performance so far? And also, are they just so happy that they're not amongst the Penn State and Texas conversation? Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Ty Simpson, and I think they backed up again, maybe some conversation that was coming towards them. And Ty Simpson in a locker room conversation said, it's us versus everybody. And I think they have that mentality where they kind of have a chip on their shoulder because they feel like they're being disrespected in a way that I don't think Alabama has been talked about before. But I think we're already starting to fall into the trap of this is Alabama, title contender, all of those things. Are you buying into the title contender hype?
I think so, only because it just feels so wide open, right? So just by like default, I think we have to consider them because are you overwhelmed? I mean, Ohio State was dominant yesterday,
Yeah.
but given what we saw with Penn State and Texas and the resume that we were talking about, you at least have to factor them in. And again, they've got a quarterback, they have a head coach. What I loved though yesterday, Paige, kind of akin to what we talked about with A&M, they won kind of ugly. I thought they left some points on the board that they could have gotten. Granted, Vandy is a really, really good team. This is no longer like the little engine that could. This is a team
Yes.
that's really, really good, well coached, great quarterback, lots of depth around. I like the fact that we're seeing Alabama's defense recover. That first week against Florida State, which feels like it was about 2 years ago, they were exposed. Effort was exposed. It's like watching a completely different team right now. So for you, yeah, if you're an Alabama fan, they did find a way to cover. You would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more, but they have a brutal schedule coming up, including next week. Survive in advance and keep as far away from the Penn State and the Texas discussion as you can be.
Yes. At number 9, we have Texas Tech, who's 5-0, beat another undefeated team in Houston this week. Some commentary I want to say. We sort of have to stop, maybe, and we're guilty of this as well, talking about the price tag of their roster as if Ohio State, Miami, Oregon, Alabama, these schools aren't also spending that much on their rosters. It's just the fact that it's Texas Tech. And to your point about the logo on the helmet, I feel like they're being a little disrespected right now here at 9.
I said a few weeks ago that this was the best Texas team. I feel a little
Yes,
iffy
the
about
best
that
team
right
in
now.
Texas.
Yeah, best team in Texas. All right, well,
Yes.
Longhorns out. A&M looks really, really good. But you know what? To the point about NIL and investment, like, good for them. You have a billionaire booster that wants to win badly, and the current state of college football allows you to do that. So you go out and get a guy like David Bailey and invest in the defense in a way that, they spent well. That's fantastic. I
And
mean, that's the name of the game.
Yes. Okay. So I want to make that point clear because I think when we think NIL spending big in the portal, you think, oh, you're going in to get a quarterback and you're paying a Carson Beck rumored to be making a couple million a year,
Yeah.
Menza at Duke rumored to make 4 million. Like there's so much that's talked about quarterback wise, and Texas Tech really invested in their defense. Not saying their quarterback is not deserving of the respect, Barrett Moore, and I appreciate you for coming back. Obviously played really well.
Yeah.
But defensively, they really beefed up and made it about their entire roster. It wasn't like a let's buy in on this one key position. It was definitely something where we could see them building this and continuing. Also, we're seeing on the flip side, recruiting wise, this is working, by the way.
Yes.
They're landing recruits over quote like blue blood programs because of the fact that they are successful this year, and I think will continue to be successful. So we will monitor that. Any other teams on here, Kramer, that you're just happy to even see? I mean, we can talk, the teams at 23 and 24. Memphis just like
Yes.
quietly
Yeah.
creeping in, just doing their job, taking care of business, just staying quiet and saying, all right, well, we're here.
The other one to me that's really interesting is Illinois. That game yesterday against Purdue felt
Mhm.
very trappish. And for a while, it looked like it was going to be a problem. Illinois
Yes.
just finds ways to win. They do it in different ways. You were a lot higher on this team, I think, before the season than I was.
Yes, I
Um,
was.
I may have bet Purdue yesterday, and I was certainly
Wow.
wrong.
Ouch.
Yeah, not no, but good for them. I mean, they've had some really emotional games, getting crushed by Indiana, the USC game, obviously. There have been, the Duke game, which is eventful. I think there was 5 turnovers in that game. So it's not always pretty, but they find ways to win. And you talk about keeping your season alive, like staying in the mix. They've done a way to do that.
Yeah. Well, now it is time for a new segment, When Work Works, presented by UKG. Go to ukg.com for HR, pay, and workforce management. And Kramer, when it works, you move up the poll. So let's take a look at the biggest risers from this week. And I will say there are a lot of them because the lucky number is 5. So if you moved up 5 spots, you are considered the biggest riser this week. Those teams include Virginia, BYU, Illinois, Notre Dame, Michigan, and Missouri. Okay. Those teams all moved up 5 spots in that like middle chunk area, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
amazing.
Let's talk about this Michigan team because they got a good win this week, and shout out to Bryce Underwood, who finally got to throw the football, career high
Yeah.
270 pass yards and a touchdown. Justice Haynes obviously still 8 on the ground. But this Michigan team, thoughts on how they are doing, and sort of maybe like a Texas A&M and M and some of the other teams we mentioned, ugly wins, maybe not like super flashy in terms of, hey, big statement, but still being consistent and still in that rank where you could be in play for a playoff spot here.
I watched this game with a Wisconsin fan, by the way. Talk about being down bad. My goodness. No, I mean, this was the number one rush defense in the country in
Yes.
Wisconsin, which is kind of shocking considering how the optics have looked there. And Michigan still averaged more than 5 yards per carry. Justin Haynes is probably one of the more underappreciated players in the entire country. He just finds a way to do it. And then I love what you said about Bryce Underwood. He's getting more comfortable, and maybe more importantly, they're getting more comfortable with him. And, for a team that has been in the spotlight the last few years for so many reasons, the head coach, obviously just a slew of elite players, national championship, they are just kind of under the radar now, are they not? Like,
Yeah.
I think that early loss against Oklahoma, the quarterback needs time. We weren't ready to fully commit. Now, granted, you beat Nebraska in a close game at Wisconsin. I think we'll learn a lot next week against USC. But you know how I feel about Bryce Underwood. I think he's going to be a
Yes.
superstar. The fact that we're seeing him develop already is such a good sign for them.
Yes, absolutely. My biggest riser, I'm going to have us talk about Notre Dame because you know what? Again, a team that is really happy to not be in the Penn State Texas bucket, where at the beginning of the year, they had 2 tough losses, close losses, and we sort of wrote them off in terms of college football playoff. This team looks a lot better in terms, I mean, their offense was always still playing fine, but I think even when they don't play their best football, they're still controlling the game. And I feel like this Notre Dame team, in terms of what they have in front of them, there's still a few tests, but I will say this is not a team I would write off in terms of college football playoff.
And I'll go with, and I like that one, by the way. They have a quarterback and obviously tremendous skill talent. Speaking of have a quarterback, how about Virginia? Up 5 spots. What a 2 weeks. This to
Yeah,
me was the ultimate letdown spot. You beat Florida State, you kind of shake up the whole season in the ACC, and then you go to Louisville, a really good team, kind of a fringe ranked team, and you win a thriller. Now, we have to start taking this team seriously to win the
we do.
ACC.
We
Look at this
do.
rest of the schedule, right? They play Washington State, which is strange, by the way, that we're doing that game right now, but whatever. North Carolina is a dumpster fire. Cal, Wake Forest, Duke, and Virginia Tech. This team we have to really consider not just to win the ACC, but maybe make the playoff because the resume, obviously the wins, we'll see where things shake out with Florida State, with Louisville, but it doesn't matter if they keep stacking up wins and they have the offense to do it. They're going to be a threat, and people are probably going to be mad about it because it's Virginia, but they deserve a lot of credit for the way they've played the last 2 weeks.
Virginia like slightly saving the ACC from maybe just having one
One
team, and I know
team,
Florida State
yeah,
fans will be really mad about that comment. But you were saying after that Florida State loss, you were like, I don't know. But even looking, so they do have the loss to NC State, and then say you
yep,
run the table, you end up in the conference championship game, you lose that game. We know the committee is very, very hesitant to leave someone out that loses in their championship game that is deserving that blemish on their resume early in the season. That's like the Notre Dame go-to is early in the season, which they're doing it again,
get it
which is
out there,
very, very
yeah,
funny. Get it out, get your early losses out
done.
of the way to bad teams, and you know what? Then you just coast the rest of the way. But you're right. I do think this is a team you actually have to take seriously in this consideration. But speaking of the ACC, let's talk about Miami. All right. You get a big win this week, maybe a little bit less exciting than we thought it was going to be at Florida State, but I thought Miami was incredibly impressive. Also, a very funny part of that game in the post-game press conference, Mario Cristobal joking about how, oh, those close games are never really over until they're over. And I was like, that is
Yeah,
a Mario Cristobal
oh
special
yeah,
because it
yeah.
is a you thing that they
He
are not over. For
yeah.
most coaches, everybody else is pretty calm, but for you, buddy, I feel like sometimes we're a little worried it's going to be blown by a not so great call. However, Miami incredibly impressive. Carson Beck looked a little better. I know you had mentioned you didn't love his performance a couple weeks ago, so I'm curious what you thought of this week.
But much better, much better. I was a little concerned when we watched against Florida. It just didn't look quite right. 4 touchdown passes, 20 completions of 27. I mean, just a really, really clean game. I thought Florida State was going to win this game. I mean, the point spread in this by kick was about 3.5. And it got a little
Mhm.
weird at the end, admittedly, but Miami really was in pretty firm control for much of the game. So the Hurricanes now, to the point about Cristobal, they just have to keep this rolling. They just have to stay
Yeah.
consistent. And I think what helps them, a la Texas Tech, this is a team that has spent very well. It's a team that found its quarterback. It's a team that's invested in the offensive, defensive line. They didn't run the football great. First road game of the year, too, by the way. That's odd to
Yeah.
be saying at this point in the year, but that's a good test in a really tough environment. So, no, Carson Beck shut me up, quite honestly, for now. I thought he played great. Quarterbacks were a talking point this week, not him. He looked the part.
Now, before we go into maybe looking at next week, because I know a lot of these teams did have buys and we still have some big games, I do want to talk about the biggest fallers were obviously Texas and Penn State this week, but I think we know the conversation that comes with this sort of struggle, and that is should James Franklin keep his job? Now, I think he's going to keep his job through the season, to be fair. After this season, I understand going, hey, we went all in for this to be the year. We've given you all of the pieces. You can't say we didn't give you the money. We didn't give you the coordinators. We didn't give you the quarterback. We didn't, all of those things have been there. And I do think after this season, if they miss the playoff or if they fall short, even in the playoff, even if you make the playoff, I think that I could see James Franklin not having a job at Penn State anymore.
So when before Ryan Day, ripped up off a magical playoff run. You go to that Michigan game where he's just standing, eyes
Yes.
glazed over, stunned. The situation was becoming so toxic that you wondered, is this going to work? And Ohio State
Yeah.
defended him, etc. James Franklin, the narrative has been he can't win a big game. But the,
Hmm.
the problem is the narrative truly has become the reality. And it's not just not winning the big game. Up until yesterday, Paige, we talked about it. He's going to lose 2 games a year. And it's the 2 games that they should lose, right? And then,
Yes.
but they're going to be good. This is different. This is kind of a program shattering loss. And I've been brutal and I'll continue to be. They kept the wrong quarterback. They let
Yeah.
their best quarterback option go to Missouri, and now Missouri has a chance to upend Alabama next week. If you keep Bo on your roster, I think Penn State's undefeated. I'm just being honest. So not just the losses, not just the narrative, but like program management. You went and
Yeah.
hired a defensive coordinator for $3 million, and you give up 42 points to a winless UCLA team. It's just unacceptable.
Yes, shout out Jerry Neuheisel though. And
Amazing.
Nico Iamaleava. I do want to
Yeah.
give him credit
There's
for
another
him.
side of this. There's a very
Yes,
positive side
there's
if
a
you're
very
not Penn
happy
State.
story on
Yes.
that. And if you missed any of that, please go look at it. That was the
Yes.
great part of college football in that internet. In the internet, I think sometimes we get so caught up in the big teams and talking about those things. But I also do want to talk about Sark because well, he doesn't want James Franklin to get fired at the end of the season because he will become the new James Franklin. If this Texas team cannot somehow turn it around, make the college football playoff, he's lost back-to-back years in the semifinals. I said this. If he doesn't do this, the narrative becomes: Can Sark win the big game? Can he get Texas all the way there, all the way back to national championship? I think we've really given a lot of I don't know, negativity towards Arch, but no one's been like, hey, do you think Sark could have like maybe gone in the portal and gotten a quarterback if he knew Arch wasn't the guy? He played Quinn Ewers over him. Did he know this? He's the only one that's really responsible for this? So it is a bit confusing on my end why there wasn't a change and how just terrible it looked. Also, by the way, the Texas defense did not look great.
No.
And that was what you could rely on if you weren't going to be able to figure this out in terms of offensively. But I'm curious your thoughts on Sark and what the narrative sort of becomes for him going forward. By the way, I don't think Sark's losing his job, but I
No.
do think this becomes sort of a pressure cooker situation where you do have to have the national championship in the next couple of years to really make this right, a la Ryan Day.
So to watch his team, he is one of the best offensive minds in the country, period. Not for debate. To watch that offense struggle in the way it has, to watch Arch struggle. Sark can't go out there and throw the footballs, right? But now they're doing sort of what Penn State was doing with Drew Aller, which is sort of scheming around the issues. So if we go back, look, Sarkisian builds that program, gets them back. They get
Yeah.
into the college football playoff. Texas is back. Recruiting has been off the charts. Obviously, they're spending big as well. All of these things are good, but the honeymoon period is over, right? You're now Texas. You are a resource powerhouse. You can't lose games like that in which they lost it. Shout out Billy Napier, by the way. When he needs a win, and he's speaking of hot seat talk, he's like, not me, not today.
Yeah.
But for Sark, I agree. He's not going to lose his job, but it does start to reach a point of discomfort that's going to impact recruiting. That's going to impact, the strain that's put on a program and based on the results they have. If they lose to Oklahoma this week, and that's like a 3-point spread, like look out. It's going to become pretty uncomfortable in Austin.
Yeah, I would say so. Let's take a look at some of next week's game, and we will start with Indiana at Oregon. Your thoughts there for the Ducks?
Good. It's good on
And
good,
Fernando
right?
Mendoza.
Yeah.
Heisman candidates. I love
Yeah.
this. I love this. In the Big Ten.
It's good on good, and it's a long road trip, right? So Indiana's got a top 5 scoring defense in the country. Oregon, obviously, offensively has been great. We talk about Heisman. Yeah, one of these quarterbacks is going to come out of this game probably as the favorite. 10-point
Yes.
spread in this. So while it's a big game between two top 10 teams, the odds makers are telling you a lot of what they think about
Yeah.
Oregon. Really tough place to play. Massive game on the card. My early lean though is Oregon. I just think there's
Yes.
too many weapons. Even if the Penn State result doesn't mean what we thought it did, I still think Oregon at home is a tough out.
Yeah, Outson Stadium is crazy. Also, very funny. Saw it on social media that Dante Moore was getting a pedicure this weekend. So I'm glad he's enjoying his
Yeah.
week off, making sure he's taken care of. Let's talk about Alabama, Missouri, because again, this Missouri team maybe not getting the credit like say an Ole Miss or a Texas A&M in terms of taking them seriously. You're obviously a big fan of their quarterback, but do you think Alabama has the momentum right now, or do you think Missouri really could cause the upset here?
Alabama is only a 4.5-point favorite in this game. So obviously it's a really tricky road trip. I know people that are going to this game. Missouri's had this on their calendar for a really long time, hoping you get by Kansas, you're in this game undefeated. I think this is a really tall challenge for Alabama. I love the way Simpson's played. You look at the way Missouri runs the ball. You look at the quarterback that has given this Alabama team, or at least the program, fits stylistically. They handle Diego. They have another tough challenge here. I think Alabama gets a win, Paige, but I think it's going to be really, really tight. This Missouri team is no joke.
Yeah. Let's talk about Oklahoma, Texas, because
Oof.
boy, did this lose a little luster in the sense of no offense to Oklahoma, obviously, doing a fine job without John Mateer. You did play Kent State, so not really a huge situation, but Michael Hawkins Jr. played well. Okay, we'll take it. But your thoughts on this game and how Texas may fare in this matchup
So Texas is a slight favorite in this game, which I don't know what
is,
that means. It's a lot to process. Who would you rather have playing quarterback right now? Arch Manning or Michael Hawkins? Who would
I
you rather
mean,
have?
this is so bad, Michael Hawkins. It's so sad
I,
because it's just because it's not even all Arch's fault. It's just that Texas offense just looks so bad.
I do think we tend to over Florida's defense is exceptional, right? So
Yes.
we do to the point of giving teams credit, not just rip on everybody all show. It's an exceptional
So
environment.
you would take Arch,
I, I don't know. I would take Texas. I don't know if I'm going to take Arch.
but Texas defense. Okay, but would you
Yeah,
take Texas defense right now or Oklahoma's defense?
that's a great question. The over under in the game has got to be like 40, right? And
I would
and
take Oklahoma's defense.
I probably would too. I still believe in this Texas defense, but the results and just the visuals say otherwise. I might lean Texas in this game, but I don't feel very good about it. I'm not proud of that. This is one I got to think about a bit, but huge game for two different reasons. A, Texas has got to stabilize to try to make their way back in the rankings, and B, we talked about Oklahoma's schedule pretty much every show we've done. Keep getting back to the point where your former Heisman favorite quarterback is on the sideline and healthy. You check these games off, and I think Oklahoma's still very much a playoff factor.
Yes. Speaking of the Florida and their defense, do you think they go into Texas A&M and M and get an upset? By the way, is Texas A&M just playing at home all year? I have it.
It's
I mean, I know they played at Notre Dame, correct? But other than that, I mean, I feel like they just
hey,
had
it's a great
numerous
hustle.
amounts of. Yeah, it really is. The schedule really plays a factor in your season and mapping that out. But thoughts on Texas A&M and Florida?
Well, and not only that, to your point, these SEC, whatever, Oregon home and you look at these home field advantages. Kyle Field, these are huge. So A&M is a 7.5 point favorite here. The problem I think with Florida, you were doing this boxing match with Texas because the quarterback play was iffy. A&M, I just think is a better version of them. But the fact that it's only a 7 point spread, again, Florida, despite the record, a lot of respect from Las Vegas. I think A&M is going to win, but I think this is going to be a really close game.
Ohio State at Illinois. Ohio State's been comfortably in the number one spot of this poll for a few weeks now. I don't necessarily have a big concern that they will lose this game. I do think it will be a tight game, though. Do you have a lean there?
I've got Ohio State. You see, PJ Fleck said that's the best defense he's ever seen. Ohio
All
State's.
right.
I'm just saying, like, so really, really impressive. I know it's Minnesota. We haven't talked about Ohio State, which has sort of become status quo because they just keep going through the motions. I mean that in the best possible way. I think they're going to win, but Illinois' offense can push them. This is an
Yeah.
environment over time that's given other programs, including this one, fits. I just think Ohio State is too talented in too many areas.
Yeah. I think the key maybe difference maker if Illinois is going to win that game is to force turnovers, which their defense
Yes.
is actually pretty good at. But that is all we have for you guys today. I am Paige Kuhn. That is Adam Kramer. We appreciate you hanging out with us. And that is your BR ranking show presented by UKG. Talk to you guys next week.